If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, comment, and subscribe to my YouTube channel, as well as follow me and subscribe to me on all my other social media platforms. What's up, Thrashers, and happy Halloween, my evil people! Yes, it is Halloween Day, October 31st here, and, well, I'm here doing a video on Halloween Day, and I am kinda sorta in a Halloween costume. I mean, I'm in my Buckeyes getup, my hat, my James Laurinaitis jersey. Basically, I'm just trying to look like John Cena from back in the day, where he would wear a sports cap and a football jersey, or some sports jersey. But, yeah, I figured it'd be the perfect time to dress up, as I am doing a video on Halloween, and what a video I have in store for you guys. So this is a ranking I have been looking forward to doing ever since I announced it several months ago, and I am finally here to talk about perhaps the greatest Gothic metal band of all time and the pioneers of Gothic metal, and that is none other than Typo Negative. Typo Negative is the band I rank. Will this ranking rule, or will it tank? Hope this video doesn't trap me in coils. Just like Peter Steele, I like goils. The total albums we're talking about is 7. What a great day for Halloween in heaven. If you like this video, then you will always rule. If you don't, suck a dick till you drool. Hey, you can't see me. Alright, I got my John Cena shtick out of the way, but I thought that was clever. I don't know about you, but I thought it was good. But anyway, so how I got into Typo Negative. This would have been probably over a decade ago, whenever I was finally getting used to having internet after spending a number of years at an old house with dial-up bullshit, and only being able to use the internet at where my mom worked, and I would take the laptop with me so I can use the internet, or at school, or sometimes on vacation we get Wi-Fi signal. I would be able to use the laptop internet, or use the internet for my laptop to check out like YouTube and other kind of music avenues. And I remembered seeing the music video for Black Number One and Christian Woman, and was like, holy crap, this is some really fucking fun stuff right here, some great music. And I became a fan of Typo Negative from that point. Also saw the clip from Beavis and Butthead, and that was really cool as well. However, I didn't fully dive head-on into everything Typo until about a couple of years ago, and I started digging into more of their work, and holy shit, I am now a gigantic fan of Typo Negative, and they have now become a top 20 favorite band of all time for me now, especially after going through everything for this ranking video. And also because, you know, Peter Steele, he was a guy, and may rest in peace, God rest his soul, but Peter Steele, looking back with how he was as a human being, he was just a hilarious, gentle giant who didn't take anything serious and hated himself, and I thought I can relate a lot to that, and as well as having similar tastes of women, and that's big titty goth metal chicks. Baby. So, there you go. So that's how I got into Typo Negative, and lo and behold, here I am today talking about their albums. Now, to kind of get started with the history of this band, let's go back to the late 70s, where Peter Steele and Josh Silver would come together to form a band called Fallout, which was a more classic heavy metal band, and they had like just a couple of songs on a demo, and then Fallout was disbanded. Meanwhile, Peter would end up forming honestly one of the best metal bands out of New York I have ever heard, and that is none other than Carnivore, because you know that New York hardcore, man. You can't go wrong with New York hardcore. Now, Carnivore had 2 albums, they're self-titled and Retaliation, and they were like a hardcore, thrash metal, dark humor, politically incorrect, and fucking kudos to that, because fuck PC bullshit. So, and it's amazing! And those albums are fucking fantastic, and I need to get those albums in the collection at some point, because I feel like a piece of shit for not having those albums in the collection yet, because they are badass. And Peter just fucking unleashes hell on those Carnivore albums. However, Carnivore would be very short-lived, as in sometime in 87 and 88, Carnivore would break up as the guitarist Mark would go to join the Crumbsuckers, and Peter decided to hook back up with Josh Silver, but also hook up with drummer Sal Abrascato and guitarist Kenny Hickey. And they would come together and form the Drab Four, which is really, really cool moment in music history. Now, they originally went under the name New Minority, but then they would change their name to Repulsion. And Repulsion was very short-lived due to the existence of the classic grindcore band from Flint, Michigan called Repulsion. And because of legal issues surrounding that, they then decided to try to go with the name Sub-Zero, and they all got the tattoos of the circle with the hyphen inside. And when they found out that they couldn't be Sub-Zero, they were like, well, damn, we got these stupid-ass tattoos. However, I can't remember who it was that came up with the name Typo Negative, but they thought, you know what? Since we got the tattoos of the circle with the hyphen, how about we call ourselves Type O Negative? Hey, way to improvise with the tattoos, and Typo Negative, that's a great name for a band since it's a rare blood type, and, well, it's a cool name either or. So, Peter, Kenny, Josh, and Sal finally solidified Typo Negative, and they would get signed to Roadrunner Records, as Carnivore was on Roadrunner back when they were known as Road Racer in the 80s. So it was a no-brainer for Typo to go to Roadrunner, considering Peter's past history with the label. And in 1991, we get the release of their debut album, Slow, Deep, and Hard. That's what she said. And Slow, Deep, and Hard, this was very much a collection of some leftover ideas from the Carnivore era mixed with what they wanted to be, which is that Gothic, doomy, Black Sabbath style band. Mix it in with a little bit of what Carnivore did back in the 80s. Now, this album is my number 4. I absolutely love this album because it's just fucking dark humor and like sexual overtones stuff all over the map, and long songs too. Like, most of these songs are like upwards of almost 10 minutes or even more than 12 minutes, especially tracks like Unsuccessfully Coping with the Natural Beauty of Infidelity, which is a mouthful of a song title, but it's a kick-ass opener, one of the best opening tracks I've ever heard, and it's very much in that vein. Like, and the song, and really all the songs on this album, kind of go in all sorts of different directions. Like, you would get that, like, more hardcore, punky thrash left over from Carnivore, but you get a little bit of, like, that Black Sabbath swagger and swing, but mix in with a lot of doom and some very slowed down, like, ambient, drawn-out sections to kind of build atmosphere and tension. But yeah, with the opening track, Unsuccessfully Coping with the Natural Beauty of Infidelity, or better known for me as I Know You're Fucking Someone Else, is the perfect, like, breakup song, and just the fucking chorus, one of the most memorable choruses I've ever heard. I know you're fucking someone else. And of course, Peter was not afraid to tell it like it was to ladies he absolutely despised. Slut, hua, kunt. Just beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Other great tracks like Zero Tolerance is another great one. Prelude to Agony, I think, is probably my favorite song on the album because it's very much the perfect blend of everything that Typo was at this point and what they would become. Like, you got the Black Sabbath swing, you get, like, the slow, doomy sections, you still get that, like, hardcore, punky thrash style attached. And while vocally, for the most part, it's still very much that, like, Peter Steele carnivore bark, there are moments where you hear how his vocals would become very soon. So, all sorts of stuff. And even the more ridiculous song titles, like Gravitational Constant, G equals 6.67 times 8 minus 8, CM minus 3, GM minus 1, Sec minus 2. Ugh. I do not know that equation at all, so there you go. But even stuff like the misinterpretation of silence and its disastrous consequences. It's 1 minute of absolute silence. And it's funny. But then there's like glass walls of Wombo, Limbo, where it's just like random ambient noise and like scary noises and stuff. Which, yeah, maybe not the best idea, but aside from that, this album fucking kicks ass. It's just dark humor, sexual humor, and just everything you know and love about Typo, you get pretty much right here on this debut, and it is my number 4. So, not too long after Slow, Deep, and Hard was released, they were initially contracted to do a live album. However, they blew their budget on God knows what, probably clove cigarettes and blow. So they decided, okay, well, how are we going to do this? Let's troll people. And they were trolls before trolls existed. And they decided to make a fake live album with them, the band, being the crowd, booing at themselves, which is amazing. So, released in 1992, we would get the second album, The Origin of the Feces. Now, this is my number 6 album overall, and just as a spoiler alert, there is no bad Typo album. Every album is great. I just ranked them in terms of preference of what I liked the most. And while this is my second to last album, it's still absolutely fantastic because while it is very much similar to Slow, Deep, and Hard, as it's pretty much all these songs are mostly reworked versions of songs from Slow, Deep, and Hard, but with that fake live element, I think it adds even more to that dark humor. Especially, those little moments of people, like, again, the crowd being the band and they're booing themselves, which is amazing, and the, you suck, you suck, you suck, and Peter going, yeah, you say we suck? You paid $15, 15 American dollars to come in here. Who's the asshole now? I'm getting paid. Turn this shit off and eat shit, you fat bastard. Or stuff like, there's a bomb threat, you need to get out. Or come up here and throw that bottle in my face. Just all the funny shit that they would throw in on all these songs were just awesome. Of course, I Know You're Fucking Someone Else, which is 15 minutes added on with those fake live elements, and other stuff like Kill You Tonight, Hey Pete, Gravity, and their cover of Black Sabbath's Paranoid, which is unrecognizable until you read the lyrics and you're thinking, oh my god, this is Paranoid? This is one of the gloomiest things ever, and it's awesome. Now, admittedly, some of the reworkings I didn't like as much as the original, like Pain on this album up against Prelude to Agony. Prelude wins every single time. But I do like how this album, like, the vocals are more loose, not so much barked. That's more of that, like, higher clean register that Peter would eventually implement starting on the next album. But I do love this album for the trolling, fun nature of it. And just, mwah. And I love how, and just one last thing about it, I love how at the end of I Know You're Fucking Someone Else, you hear Peter going, yeah, thanks for the memories, you fat-ass bitch. And it's just amazing and beautiful. So, yeah. The Origin of the Feces. And I also forgot to mention, Peter really opens up on this album, and and I'm not talking about his voice, I'm talking about the original album cover, with his spread open ass cheeks. Yeah, try getting that image out of your head. But anyways, I digress. Origin of the Feces, my number 6. Now, not long after, back to the studio we go, and now we get to the third album, and it would be the album that pretty much broke typo out into the mainstream, and that is, of course, 1993's Bloody Kisses. This album would actually be the first album ever on Roadrunner Records to go platinum, or gold, and then eventually platinum, which is huge accolade for not only the band but for the label. And of course, 2 music videos for the 2 singles that I'll talk about here in a moment. But this is my number 2 album. I absolutely love this album. This is one of the best albums of the 1990s, bar none. And right around the time, and this is right at the time when grunge was the flavor of the month, Typo was able to sneak out and just bring out something that was very unique. While it still has some of the hardcore thrash influence, it's a lot less on this album. This album is much more of that gothic, doomy sound that we would grow to know from Typo Negative. And of course, the 2 big singles, Christian Woman, which is an amazing song, and then of course the biggest song that people associate Typo Negative with is of course Black Number 1, which is a song about an ex-girlfriend of Peter, because Peter loved the gothic girls, and who can blame him? Goth chicks who are sexy are fucking hot. Of course, there's politically incorrect stuff still left over, such as in the song Kill All the White People. Wait, what? Huh? If you're gonna do it to this song, because the song is awesome, even though it's, I hate everything about white people. No, what? Huh? Sorry. But anyways, of course, their cover of Summer Breeze by Seals and Croft, it's one of the greatest cover songs of all time. But if you were to ask me to bring Typo down to one song to describe to a non-fan what they sound like, it would probably be the song We Hate Everyone, because you pretty much get everything about Typo in that song. You get that hardcore thrashy vibe, the dark humor, then to the gothic doom stuff that you get from Typo. That song is like the perfect amalgamation of everything they're all about. Other great tracks like Too Late, Blood and Fire, Can't Lose You, the title track, which is one of the saddest metal songs ever written. But yeah, top to bottom, this album is just mwah, a spicier meatball. And what more can I say about it that hasn't been said already by other people, other than it's my number 2. So, big time touring for the next couple of years off of the success of this album, and they would finally get back to the studio, and then released in 1996, we would get October Rust. Now, this is where we hear a big shift in Typo's sound. Pretty much gone is the hardcore and thrash influence, but we get a pretty damn good trade-off of it. While, yeah, miss some of the hardcore and the thrash, we get a great trade-off where it's now becoming more lush and more romanticized gothic metal with beautiful melodies. And of course, there's still a lot of great dark humor on here, such as the first 2 tracks, Bad Ground and Are We On, and the final track, Hope It Wasn't Too Disappointing. Just basically the band thanking the fans and telling you to enjoy and hope it wasn't bad. So, more of that humor is still there. But of course, musically, this album just is so lush and melodic and catchy. This is my number 3 album. And there are some very strong songs on this album. Love You to Death is... I would say Love You to Death followed up by Be My Druidess are back-to-back the 2 greatest fuck songs of all time. And with Love You to Death being 7 minutes long, that's enough to have sex twice. Meanwhile, in the song Haunted, which is 10 minutes, that's enough to have sex 3 times. And of course, Be My Druidess, that's enough for sex and a steak. I mean, there you go with that. But of course, all jokes aside, like, these songs were just masterfully crafted with, again, more of those lush melodies. Not as heavy as Bloody Kisses, though it's still very metal and doomy for the most part. It's more of that romanticized Gothic sound that bands like him would eventually take up on not too long after this. But other great tracks like Red Water Christmas Morning, which is the saddest Christmas song ever, In Praise of Bacchus, which is another highlight song, Wolf Moon, which is amazing, My Girlfriend's Girlfriend, that's like Playboy when you're 12 years old, and that music video is like, ha 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 ha. And I love how with that song it sounds very much like late 60s, early 70s psychedelic pop. And even in the music video, it felt like that. But, yeah, and of course that lyric, in our meat triangle, balls jangle, wow. And then, of course, the, hey, I did it perfectly. First try, baby. Yes! But, yeah, just a great combination of, like, Gothic imagery, romantic imagery, spooky imagery. It's just a great amalgamation lyrically and thematically of what Typo has to offer. And of course, there would be some vocal effects. I know some people are kind of turned off by when Peter Steele uses too many effects on the vocals, but I think it helps to add more to the atmosphere of these songs and just enhances these songs tenfold, if you ask me. So yeah, October Rust, my number 3. And excuse me for a moment. Alright, we're back. I had to go take a drink and get something done real quick, but we are back. So, one thing I forgot to mention with October Rust, that was where you heard Peter Steele crooning and can croon the panties off of any girl I know. So, there's that for you. However, things are about to get fucked up real quick. So, 3 years go by, and we get the next Typo Negative album, and by this point, Peter's life is in complete turmoil. Like, he's got a serious alcohol and cocaine addiction at this point. Of course, his mental health status wasn't the greatest by this point after people in his family start getting sick, and other people in his family start dying, and just life is shit for Peter at this point. And of course, the alcohol and drugs do not help at all. And so the band decided to create the darkest, most somber, yet the most heavy album in the entire discography. Released in 1999, still on Roadrunner, we get World Coming Down. This album was the first album to crack the top 40 on the Billboard charts, and it would be the last time they would crack the top 40 on Billboard, which is very interesting considering the themes of this album. Holy shit. But, yeah, like I said, with Peter's life in turmoil, you can feel this album. In fact, that's why this album is my number 1. Hands down, in terms of everything Typo ever did, this album is hands down the most brutally honest. After all, thematically, it was all about his life falling apart, his world coming down. And while I miss the dark humor, there was little bits of it, like in the opening track, Skip It, where it's just like a scratch CD, and at the end you hear, Sucker! But the rest of this album is just sad, glum, depressing. Like, it's almost Funeral Doom levels of depressing, which is ungodly at this point. But I do love with the theme that they're going for, all about death and stuff. The music matches up to that theme perfectly. This is unbelievably heavy for Typo. It's basically a heavier version of October Rust, but with a more honest, bleak, dreary atmosphere. White Slavery, all about Peter's cocaine addiction. Everyone I Love Is Dead is like the Gothic funeral anthem for anybody. It is so depressing. Who Will Save the Sane, all about Peter's mental health status, and it's kind of like Gothic metal jazz, because there's a lot of like jazz parts on this song, which was really unique, and I really liked it. Creepy Green Light was another killer track. Everything Dies, that's another depressing song, especially lyrically. You know, a song with the lyrics saying, I loved my aunt, but she died. And my Uncle Lou, then he died. Like, holy shit. Pirate Ablaze, I think, is an underrated track. All Hallows Eve, perfect for today. Day Tripper, the Beatles medley cover, is fucking amazing. And I wish that if Peter was still alive, Typo would have done a whole Black Sabbath and Beatles cover album. And I would have bought that out. I would have pre-ordered that on CD immediately. But for me, and also before I get to my favorite track, there are 3 soundscape tracks on this album, Sinus, Liver, and Lung, and each one represented the part of the body that's being destroyed from alcohol, cocaine, and cigarettes, and made a soundscape for each one, and it was really cool. But yet very terrifying, especially Lung, you know, all about smoking and like hearing the hospital flatline and the woman crying and the baby squeals. It was like, holy shit. And Sinus with that big scream at the end of from Peter. And I even remembered reading stuff that like Peter legit had a panic attack from listening back to Sinus because it felt all too real. But for me, the song that makes this album what it is for me, the title track, World Coming Down. 11 minutes of just dark, evil riffing that's very much in that Black Sabbath vein. Like, this whole album has so much comparison to Black Sabbath. And holy shit. And like the song World Coming Down, that's become one of my favorite sing-along songs too. Especially the final few minutes. It's just, oh, absolutely love it, and maybe my favorite Typo song of all time. But yeah, going into this ranking, originally Bloody Kisses was going to be my number 1 because, you know, it was the popular one. But going back and listening to World Coming Down, it's like, geez, I appreciate this even more now. And because I've even been a couple of moments in my life where I was in a dark place after losing family members. And I could relate to a couple of songs off of this album, but yeah, this is a masterpiece. The greatest Gothic metal album ever made. And I like how, and I consider Bloody Kisses, October Rust, and World Coming Down as the holy trinity of Typo Negative, or the holy trinity of Gothic metal as a whole, because Bloody Kisses, that was more of the humorous traditional side of goth. October Rust was that more lush, romanticized goth sound. World Coming Down was like the dark, depressing goth album. It's just brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. And it's my number 1, World Coming Down. Only 2 albums remain, and 4 years would go by. They take a nice long break after World Coming Down, and we get Life Is Killing Me in 2003, and it would also be the last album on Roadrunner Records. This album, more continued themes of depression, infidelity, some sexual stuff comes back, but even Peter described his album as his midlife crisis. This album is my number 7. This is my last place one, and it's not that I don't like it. I love this album. I love all these albums. But this one, listening to it, is kind of an odd listen, because while you still get your token Typo stuff, the dark, gothic, moody depression stuff, yet this album's oddly poppy in certain spots. Like, there's a lot of moments on this album where it sounds like the most depressing band in the world paying homage to, like, the Monkees or something, and it's really weird. But there are some heavy fucking riffs on this album. Songs like Anesthesia is particularly incredible. A Dish Best Served Coldly is maybe the heaviest song of the album. It is so doomy and kind of sludgy. Almost reminds me a little bit of Alice in Chains, a little bit on that song. The title track is another great one. Nettie is really cool. Todd Ship Gods was a very unique song. Less Than Zero, I wanted to highlight that because Peter actually plays some clean tone bass on that song, which is really cool, even though I do love that fuzzy, beefy tone from everything before and afterwards. And then, of course, the big single, I Don't Wanna Be Me. That's a fun, catchy song, but it's just really weird with that upbeat pop element. It is an odd contrast, because coming off of World Coming Down, it's like you're going from one extreme to kind of the next. And there were some spots on this album that didn't work for me. Songs like We Were Electrocute. It's like, that's fucking dumb. But other songs I completely forgot, like IYDKMIGTHTKY. Give me that. Or I'm sorry, it means if you don't kill me, I'm going to have to kill you. It's a great song in its own right, for sure. The Dream is Dead was a really cool closer. Even like the short tracks, like I Like Goils. There's a reason I brought that up in my opening rap, and that's because this was a fun, poppy kind of tune that was meant to troll on dudes that found Peter sexy after his Playgirl cover. And it's like, what are we supposed to do, Peter? Like, come on. But most importantly, Peter, I hate to break it to you and to anybody else, but Playgirl's demographic isn't girls. And he found that out the hard way, and that's why this song was written. So, there you go. But yeah, Life Is Killing Me, my number 7. Now, like I said, that would be the last album on Roadrunner Records, and they needed to find a new home, so they would eventually sign over to SPV Steamhammer Records, which, of course, if you're a fan of Sodom, that's really the only label they've been on their whole career. So Typo went over to SPV Steamhammer, and released in 2007, we get the 7th and last Typo Negative album, and that's Dead Again. Now, this is my number 5 album. I really liked it. The first time I listened to it in full was just before filming this video, because holy shit, this album, it's like the perfect culmination of everything Typo ever did. Of course, as far as where Peter was in his life at this point, he had gotten clean for the most part, apart from a bottle of wine here and there with a nice pasta dinner. But also, he pretty much became a born-again Christian by this point, and said in interviews, yeah, I made mistakes, but my humor side is still going to be there. It's never going to go away. But he had a more reformed, what's the phrase I'm looking for? He became more reformed as a human being after going through all the bad things he went through in life, and pretty much didn't want to be doing the rock and roll lifestyle anymore of just constantly partying. He wanted to be at peace and enjoy himself. And I think his renewed happiness shows on this album, because while it still carries over a little bit of that kind of poppiness from Life Is Killing Me, but then when you get down to tracks like Halloween in Heaven and Some Stupid Tomorrow, it's like, oh my god, the hardcore and the thrash is back. And it was almost like, you know what, let's see what we got on the table. Maybe some leftover carnivore niblets that were left over. Let's throw them into this album. And also, I completely forgot to mention that after Bloody Kisses, Sal left, and in walks Johnny Kelly. Although this would be the only album Johnny Kelly actually played drums to. Like October Rust, World Coming Down, and Life Is Killing Me was all by a drum machine, and a good sounding drum machine. But Johnny Kelly actually did play drums on this album. And of course, other songs on here that were really good, like the opening track, Dead Again, was really, really cool. Tripping a Blind Man, that's kind of where that like hardcore thrash started to come back, but with a little bit of that poppiness. Prophet of Doom brings back more of the Sabbath influence. September Sun, I really enjoyed. Halloween in Heaven, the song itself, is a fucking brilliant song, and it's a tribute to Dimebag Darrell. And also features Tara Van Flower from Lycia, which was like a gothic dark wave band, and it really works. But other songs that were really cool on here, like an ode to locksmiths, These Three Things, which was, not counting I Know You're Fucking Someone Else, the longest song they ever did at over 14 minutes. And then Hail and Farewell to Britain. Very strange how that was Peter's final song, and even in the final lyrics it said, Hail and Farewell to Me. Almost kind of prophetic in a way, because, yeah, this would be it for Typo, and I say, hail and farewell to you, Peter. May you rest in peace, as in 2010, in March, we unfortunately lost Peter Steele after a heart attack at just the age of 48. Taken from us way too soon. And I think looking back, like, Peter's legacy is that he was one of the best people in metal. Like, he wasn't afraid to tell it like it was in anything. He was very fucking hysterical, didn't take anything seriously, and cared for his friends and family, just like any man in life should be. And of course, after Peter's passing, Typo was officially disbanded, as couldn't go on without Peter. Meanwhile, Kenny, Johnny are still out there doing projects and other bands and stuff. Like, hell, Johnny, he's been in Danzig for a while, which is really cool for him. But of course, Josh pretty much has no interest in coming back to music, because he's basically like, well, if Peter's not here to do it, then I don't want to do it. And now he is officially an EMT in New York. So if you're ever in New York and you need help, call up Josh Silver and get an autograph for me while you're there. But yeah, that pretty much wraps up the Typo Negative album ranking. Yeah, all of these albums are fucking brilliant. It's just tastes and certain aspects would kind of affect the ranking. But all 7 of these albums are absolutely incredible. So, there you have it. How would you guys rank the Typo discography? What is your favorite Typo album? Let me know in the comments below. As far as what's coming up next for album rankings, next month, November, I'm going to be doing Deicide, which is going to be an interesting one. But December, we're going to end off 2022 with a bang with Black Sabbath. And that's going to be an interesting ranking for sure, because it's going to be tough. But anyways, thank you guys for watching. Horns high. See you guys later.
Alright, well, I'm on a secluded island right now. So I have no idea where y'all are.
You're just on an island paradise while we're over here fighting for our lives.
We're at the same coordinates I was at
so many
before.
sounds out
Just
there.
killed a zombie by
Okay, I'm here. Oh my god!
They were multiplying!
There's so many! What the fuck?
There's so many zombies! What is this? I don't think I've ever seen that many zombies in a
I don't want to be out here
ever in my
anymore. I've
life.
decided
Must be
I don't want to be here. Okay, never mind. I'm not heroic, as it turns out.
Uh-oh, we got a badass.
Okay, well, you know what? It was fun while it lasted.
Oh god, don't give up on